So today we're going to talk about, well, we're going to talk about a few things, but we're going to open up talking about Google Authenticator and how they just rolled out something that's pretty meme worthy in my eyes. Because at least in the past, we could be like, hey, it's just offline, it's no big deal. It's fine if it's not open source. Like you can just turn off the internet access to that app. It's like not a big
hmm
deal. But now this is like, now we can officially say, like, just don't
Pretty
touch Google Authenticator, I think.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Right.
Google Authenticator is an app that you store your 2FA codes for. So it's just like any of the authenticators we recommend, like Ravio or Aegis. Is that how you say this? I never hear these words out loud.
I,
I
I don't
just see
know.
them on the screen.
It's that's funny when you make video content because yeah, no one actually says these because it's all just online.
hmm
And yeah, but then I've heard Aegis, I've heard I don't know.
Just guessing.
People know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you store those 6-digit codes in there, it generates them. Pretty simple. The old version, it hadn't been updated for a long time. They released it in like 2010 or something, and then pretty much never changed it except for like a minor material design update a few years ago. And then a few days ago, they released a major update, which included like cloud syncing. So all of your codes are backed up to your Google account now. And the meme worthy changes that we were talking about is that that new cloud sync functionality doesn't end to end encrypt your data. It's just sending your 2FA secrets directly to Google, where they could access them if they wanted. Or they could be, if there was ever a data breach, they could be hacked.
Yeah, that is very problematic.
How do you function?
Because it kind of like turns what 2FA is supposed to be right on its head.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be just something you have, not something that's stored on the cloud for someone else to access. Because now it's effectively just like a second password almost. Does Google still not allow you to view and export your seeds? Because that used to be also my gripe with them.
That, I believe so. I have to actually check that out because I have heard that from people that it still doesn't let you back up your codes,
That's
even though
what
there's this cloud sync functionality.
that's what I've heard as well. So if anyone wants to disprove that, definitely let us know in the comments. But based on both of our understandings, Google still doesn't let you view or export your seeds, meaning if you want to use a different app, like if you want to move over to an open source app, because again, this is all an open standard. There's no reason for these companies not to give you that seed. There's no security risk to that, as far as I can tell, assuming they like maybe they'll ask for a password or your PIN if you set one up. But like outside that, there's no reason for them not to share it with you unless they want to keep you in that ecosystem. And honestly, maybe that's what Google's doing here. Maybe this is Google's way of responding to things like Authy, and they're trying to keep people in the Google Authenticator ecosystem. I don't know what incentive they have to do that. Oh, there is an update now.
I was just gonna say, I think I just saw it, but you can say it.
Yeah, so there is an update that we're seeing right now. Actually, this happened like right before we started recording. The company has plans to add end-to-end encryption to Authenticator, quote, down the line.
Uh, Interesting. So I bet it'll be a situation similar to how Chrome syncs all of your Chrome data, where it's end-to-end encrypted with your Google password by default, but you can add an optional like sync passphrase to encrypt it with that instead of your Google account credentials.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet it'll be like an optional password that they let you add.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Um, what do you self-host versus what FOSS do you use versus what do you pay for? That's a big question. I will say I actually answered this kind of on a surveillance report. I think it was SR 117 or 118. Very recent, last few weeks. Someone asked like what we self-host, Nate and I on surveillance support, and I don't really self-host anything. I really don't like self-hosting things because I don't want to be responsible for my data, and that's the whole selling point of self-hosting something, which I fully understand. But like uptime for me is super important. Like I can't stand when something is down for even 10 minutes, and I hate troubleshooting things. I hate maintaining my own stuff. I like things to just work. I used to be more like in control of everything, and I feel like I've hit a good balance now with my life where I trust the services that I'm giving control to, and I trust them to handle my data, my privacy and security extremely well, but they can also guarantee uptime. They can guarantee that like everything is just going to work almost 24/7. So that is something I've migrated to. With that said, I do have a Synology NAS sitting there that they sent me for a review. And I just picked up two 14 terabyte hard drives a couple days ago. So I'm going to pop those babies in there, and we're going to see what the self-hosting life is more like. The one thing I do really want to self-host is photos because I don't have a very good photo solution. Right now I have just like an external hard drive with all my photos laying on it, and it's a ridiculous configuration. If someone asks me, hey, do you have that photo that we took 3 years ago? And I go, yeah, but it's going to take me like 5 hours to find it because I have like no organization system for it. So I would love to get over on like the Synology NAS and be able to upload and view my photos from anywhere. And I think that it has its own like Google Photos-esque features built into Synology software where you can easily like sort things and have everything organized very cleanly. So that's like the one thing I could justify self-hosting. Everything else, it's hard for me to justify self-hosting. It really is, because there's such great options on the market already that are all zero knowledge or end-to-end encrypted, and the implementation is fantastic. And I also have a very, very minimal digital lifestyle. I don't do much with tech. And if it wasn't for Techlore, I probably wouldn't even have a computer, which is what I said earlier. So like I just don't do much with my tech. Like photos are the only thing that like I really need to worry about storing and doing something with them. That's really it. I mean, Apple at this point has released end-to-end encryption across almost all of their cloud services at this point, and with the
Right.
advanced data protection program, which we covered in a previous Techlore talks. End-to-end encryption is a powerful feature that provides extra protections, but at the cost of enabling users to get locked out of their own data without recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
That's
like,
always a common talking point against end-to-end encryption. That was the public reason that Apple gave for not introducing end-to-end encryption on all their services for a long time.
Yeah, so starting with the next version of iOS, which isn't out yet, it's out in beta right now, 16.2. iCloud Advanced Data Protection is going to cover pretty much everything in iCloud except for mail, contacts, and calendar, which is because those are built on like legacy technologies. They wouldn't be able to support third-party mail clients, that type of thing. So it's kind of a tricky problem to do. Yeah, I mean, email and like calendar and contact sync, all of these technologies are built on like really old, like beginning of the internet type of web standards, basically, where like there's so much backwards compatibility and like legacy software involved in that space. It's really hard to build like a secure platform on top of it, which is why like usually we don't even recommend email at all for like a primary method of secure communication, because even with encryption technologies like PGP, there's so much that's unencrypted throughout the whole chain of communication that's avoided if you use like a modern messenger like Signal. And it's the reason that um, encrypted email providers like Proton Mail, they don't work well with third-party clients. You have to use like their web interface or something like that, or you can use like their bridge program that kind of like converts it from encrypted to plain text on your computer. But it's 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 a pretty big hassle to kind of convert all of that stuff to modern encryption, and To me, it's understandable that they didn't try and like tackle that, but I certainly wouldn't be recommending people use iCloud Mail.
Like that's what Apple, this
Right.
isn't a default.
Exactly.
If you're just using iCloud, you don't have end-to-end encryption, but if you enroll in the advanced data protection program, then they are like, hey, you have to download a recovery key, which you should have one set up anyway. If you have an iCloud account, you don't have a recovery key, you should set one up because it's a little bit more secure. Um, and if you already have one set up, it's the same recovery key. You don't actually have to set up a new recovery key when you enable advanced data protection. And so Google could do the same thing where it's like, hey, by default, we encrypt our data in transit, at rest, blah, blah, blah. But if you want end-to-end encryption, you have to opt in and download a recovery key, which, by the way, if you're already managing your own authenticator app, you should already be kind of doing this, because if you're using something like Aegis, whatever you want to say, you're probably backing up your vault somewhere and saving a password to unlock that vault, which is, in my eyes, equally as challenging as just saving a recovery key in your password manager. So, yeah, they should have never rolled this out without end-to-end encryption. It's kind of a joke, and I'm glad that the community stepped up. This is like a valid community criticism, I feel. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Is there another authenticator app that offers end-to-end encrypted cloud syncing? On all like operating systems, I guess all mobile operating systems like this.
Um, there's an app that we've been looking at lately that recently went open source. It's called 2FAs, 2FAS.
Oh, that's right. I saw that one
I
too.
think you've seen that.
Yeah.
They went open source earlier this year, and it seems to be, um, I think they have a browser extension as well as mobile app, so it's cross-platform.
Um, we published that YubiKey 2FA review. Dude, the story behind that's so funny because, well, it's not funny. But Yubico reached out in like October 2021 or something like that. And they're like, hey, do you guys want to like review some stuff for us? And we're like, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like I've wanted to for a while. So they sent us some review units, and it kind of like continually ended up on the back burner, like a lot of the things we do. And before I knew it, we did record that video in summer of last year, but we only published it recently because we recorded like 10 videos all at once, and we're still rolling those out, which is why we have so many videos just scattered through our production right now. They're like, oh, this was recorded in 2022, not 2023. Um, but yeah, they canceled our affiliate. There was supposed to be an affiliate link on that video for like YubiKeys,
Oh,
and they
really?
canceled our affiliate plan because it's like a year and a half later, and I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you guys. So we just push out the video anyway, because it's like it's not worth it. Like I don't want to like pick a battle over this. Like we kind of screwed up, and like it's fine. Like if people are gonna
Really?
buy them anyway, it's fine. It doesn't change our review. So it's I just thought that was a funny story.
That's funny.
Yeah, I never heard back from them either.
Huh.
I reached out and I'm like, hey, we have a review ready to go, and they're like, crickets. So I actually left I don't normally leave like really long responses to YouTube comments, but someone actually asked a really good question, and I felt it was like worthy enough for me to give them like a really solid response. And I wanted to hear your take on it. So someone asked, what is the risk of leaving one is a hardware key in your laptop if, say, your laptop was stolen? Do you remove the YubiKey or security key when you're not using it? I wanted to hear your take, because I feel like that's kind of a misunderstood thing. If people are like, well, if it's in there in my laptop, then doesn't that like keep everything in one basket in a way?
Um, yeah, I mean, it does in a sense. Like if your laptop was stolen, they'd also need your password. That which is exactly why there's two factors. It's not YubiKey only, typically. The main threat for people is by and large like remote attacks, right? Like you're not being hacked by typically somebody in your immediate vicinity. So there aren't like people going around stealing laptops just to hack your digital identity. It's mostly you're under attack from like hackers in foreign countries that you could never catch, and there's so many of them because the internet is worldwide. It's so accessible that you have to protect against the entire world at once. So the benefit to just having one of these at all is that it narrows it down to just the people in your immediate physical vicinity, which is a much smaller group of people to defend against. Um, it really depends on your um, on what level of risk that you're willing to take, though. I think as to whether you leave it in your laptop all the time or not. Like if you're really concerned about that, YubiKey has like um, has keys that have fingerprint scanners built in, for example. So you can use that as an option. You can always just keep it separate and keep it on like a keychain or something and only connect it when you need it, that kind of thing. But um, for most people, realistically, it's probably fine if you left it in your laptop because um, you're still protecting yourself from like 99.9% of all of the people trying to hack into your account, right?
Right. I just edited the comment to add. I forgot they offered biometric keys, and that's a really good point. So
Yeah,
if you
that
do,
is a new thing. It's pretty neat.
right, I really like that. But in theory, if your device is completely secure, they're not going to be able to get into your operating system. So all they're going to have is a key, and you
Right.
can't really get into any accounts with just a key unless you're using like a passkey type of situation with Fido.
Yep.
But that's kind of it. Which I
But even
guess
then, you have to. That's secured with a pin typically. So.
right, and there's still a pin there, which
Mhm.
is another thing I left in the comment. And the other thing too is like this is why layering up is important. Let's say you can't get full disk encryption, or let's say someone bypasses your full disk encryption and your password, and they have access to your operating system. Then what? You can still have protections in place, even if someone has complete access to your operating system and your YubiKey. This is for like higher threats, but like this is when you have browsers that don't save any data on exit, because
Mhm.
then there's no saved credentials in your browsers. And this is when you have to make sure you have a strong master password for your password manager, because then no one can really access anything, even if they have access to your operating system. And even from there, if you want to have a higher threat model, what if someone breaks into your password manager from there? Do you have protections in place to still have like some variance of protection within your password manager? Do you have things like appended passwords at the end of each randomly generated password to offer you like one last layer of protection? So this is kind of what it speaks to me as. It's like, yeah, someone can steal your laptop with your YubiKey, you're probably fine. But if you want to be ultra secure, then yeah, you can keep them separate. But I think I'm more concerned about if someone steals my laptop, I just lost one of my keys, I have to make sure I have a backup. So it's always
Yep.
important to have a backup.
Yeah, you definitely need to buy these in a pair at least. You know, you gotta have two of them.
Agreed. Two or more.
Mhm.
Is this guy a retard?
Another thing that I've seen a couple people ask about, even before this video, it just a general confusion, is like whether any identifiable information is stored on these YubiKeys,
That
or
was
like can websites use one to like correlate your account between different services, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a good question that was asked in our patron signal chat, We have a Signal group chat for patrons. Join our Patreon if you want to join that.
Um, and the answer is no. The FIDO2 and the previous U2F protocols that these websites use for encryption were designed with privacy in mind. So no like identifiable information gets stored on the YubiKey. If you find one on the street, you're not going to be able to plug it in and find out what accounts are stored on that, what accounts can that key be used on. And then similarly, like websites can't identify the key that you're using. So like two websites couldn't talk to each other and find out if somebody used the same key on both accounts to kind of correlate that information.
So is what you're saying like each website, so let's say Proton Mail has their like half-baked U2F support, and then Google has good U2F support. Proton Mail would get its own unique identifier for the key, and Google would get its own unique identifier for the key, and so they wouldn't be able to directly correlate those two things.
absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Because actually, I don't think we got a comment about that, which surprises me because we didn't actually acknowledge that point in our YubiKey video. And is that universal for all of these security keys, or is that just a YubiKey?
Yeah, that's part of the FIDO2 or WebAuthn standard
Very cool.
that they're privacy protecting. I do actually think that YubiKey has their own proprietary authentication protocol, like YubiOTP or something, that might not be as privacy protecting. I have only seen one website ever use that, and I don't. I think I think it might have been LastPass.
Oh my
Honestly,
god, no!
that used it. If I'm remembering correctly, I could be wrong, but that's my memory right now. It's very rare, so I don't think you'll have to. Most people won't have to worry about that, but
That's really funny.
yeah.
That's good stuff, though.
I haven't watched your video about it yet, so I'll have to check it out.
It's pretty bare bones. It's one of our that summer lineup. I think we went a little too far because we recorded those 10 videos over summer, and I think we went a little too far into like the simplistic content format because we were trying to be like, okay, well, can we make like all our videos just super short and condensed in like 6 to 7 minutes, so that way people are like more likely to like maybe like get more noobs on board. But they're not performing that well. In fact, I think that like people seem to prefer the longer, more nuanced stuff because that's what makes us different from a lot of other channels, I think.
You serious?
And so it's cool to have like our longer form content, and actually it performs better anyway. So I think that's what we should continue sticking with because people like the more complicated, nuanced, like, oh, this is kind of nice here, but not so nice here. 10+ minute content, like our Proton review. We could have done a 6-minute variant of that Proton review. I don't think it would have performed that well. But the fact that we did that super long Proton review and people really enjoyed it overall. Second, Proton's themes look great, but as someone who switches between light and dark theme automatically, it's silly for Proton to not have a system theme option, especially when their apps have this, opening the discussion on client consistency, which we'll cover later in the video. My final major complaint is how Proton Mail handles multiple accounts on the web. To switch between accounts, you leave the main UI to enter the account switcher, then select a different account, which is wildly inconvenient. All accounts should just be listed in one place, just copy the mobile apps. Actually, speaking of, it's interesting, because I just published a blog post for that, and I don't know, it's weird. I don't think it's overly pessimistic nor optimistic. I think to me it felt like a review, but maybe it's like fanboys are gonna fanboy because I still got a lot of people going, well, do you like Proton or not? And it's like, I do, I use them, but this is a review. And then,
Yeah.
like, it's a review. Like, you mentioned this kind of jokingly, but I don't know if it's real. Like, are people just so used to, like, sponsored reviews that, like, when people actually criticize things in reviews, they think that it's, like, strongly against the service? And it's like, no, like, it's not meant to be an overwhelmingly positive take on something. It's meant to be critical and tell people exactly what to expect before they buy something.
It's a weird phenomenon to me. It just seems like a lot of people don't understand that you can criticize something that you like.
Right. We're all in on Proton stuff. Like,
Right.
for Techlore, like if you email contact@techlore.tech from a Proton email, it will have the Proton little blue icon because we're using Proton for the Techlore email. And we can still make a review and be like, no, there's problems here. Because like here's like the target audience for a review. It's someone who's like, okay, I have a business, or I need to get a new email address for myself in my personal life. Either or, doesn't matter. I'm going to look at some Tutanota reviews. I want to see what this suite is about. I want to look at some Proton reviews and see what this suite is about. I want to look at some Google Workspace reviews and see what their suite is about. And I'm going to compare the pros and cons between them based on these reviews that I found. Because I'm about to give them money, my own hard-earned money, and I want to have like actual objective information about these services.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you.
It's doing a disservice to not be honest, I feel. But
Absolutely, yeah.
Jonah just did get formally invited through his visionary plan, but Proton did release Proton Pass, which is their password manager. First thoughts, go.
My initial impression so far is that it's pretty feature limited right now, but it's a very polished user experience. I would say that everything that it does right now, it does well. In as far as I've seen so far.
On my end, I agree with you completely so far. Like everything, I'm actually very impressed with how polished it is so far. And I think it's one of the best rollouts I've seen from Proton. Because normally, like, they'll release like everything on desktop first, and then they'll get like one mobile app like 4 months later, and then the next mobile app comes out 4 months later, and then they like slowly leak out of beta over the course of the next like 6 months. Well, that's actually really important because this is my biggest gripe right now with Proton Pass, is that, so with Proton Mail, Proton Drive, Proton whatever, when you click on that little 4 dots on the top left and you have all 4 of them in your little suite. As of right now, there is no Proton Pass. There's no central web app for
Right.
Proton Pass. It's only in the extension. You have to use the Proton Pass extension to use Proton Pass on your computer. It's not a program you download. It's not even a web app. It's literally in the extension. And that's actually my biggest gripe with it, because now it's like in this little tiny window. because I haven't found a way to like view all my passwords like full screen. It just lives in
Yeah.
my little extension window because that's all it is. It's just an extension. So actually, it was a really big deal, and a bigger deal than I thought it was, that Proton initially announced this without Firefox support, because it meant you literally couldn't access your passwords on a Firefox based browser. You had to use a Chromium based browser. That's no longer a thing, which is awesome. So it's nice to see them actually roll this out to all clients. I don't know why they didn't wait like what 4 days, five. Like I don't know why they didn't wait a week to just wait for Firefox to be live so that they can say it's on all clients. But same. I
I
haven't
would
touched.
imagine the apps. I would hope the apps would work offline, but I guess we'll figure that out.
Me too. I haven't touched the mobile apps either. I'll have to try them out and see how they integrate with especially Android autofill. iOS has
Mm,
really good native autofill support, but Android
yeah,
is awful. It's so bad on Android, dude. And like
it is.
it's terrible. And then even like individual browsers have to support it as well. It's
Hmm.
oh my god, so
That
bad.
is one of the main things. Like, there's been a lot of things that are keeping me off of Android, and I thought that I was using my Pixel again, and I was thinking like maybe I could switch to this as my main phone because I can probably get over most of this stuff. But that is, it's the worst experience trying to use a password manager. Like if you're used to things just working correctly the first time, it's hard to give that up.
Agreed. And it's weird how like even password managers like I think KeePassDX, like the way they have to work sometimes is that don't they need like the accessibility permission to like record your screen the whole time?
That is definitely a thing. Like with password managers, like requesting accessibility options. I know when I was trying one password on Android, they had like three different ways you could enable autofill, and you were supposed to enable all of them so that it worked in all the apps. There's the native autofill. There's that accessibility one where you can like draw over the screen and like
That
type
one.
it into apps that don't support it, and then there's like another weird one. There's like special integrations with certain browsers, stuff like that. It's ridiculous on Android.
Yes. I remember that being a problem. Actually, for a short time I was thinking about switching to Bitwarden, but I was using Android at the time. And the way that Bitwarden handled autofill was significantly worse than whatever KeePass client I was using. Maybe it was KeePassDX or something like that. I forgot what it was, but whatever KeePass client I was using on Android, it handled autofill better than Bitwarden. And I like rage quit Bitwarden on Android because I think it didn't work. I don't know if this is still a thing. This is based on my memory, so please, I'm saying this in good faith. I want to say that Bitwarden didn't work with Brave.
How long ago did you use that? Do you remember?
That was a while ago. Might have been like close to a year ago. So this might be fixed now. Maybe it was a different browser. I just remember whatever browser I was using back then, which I would like to guess was probably Brave, was not compatible with Bitwarden, and I did not want to open Bitwarden manually every time and like manually like switch apps to copy username, switch apps to copy password, and then it's a joke.
Every web search result in Brave Search is now served by their own index. They don't have any API calls to Bing. Um, it is kind of interesting. It's strange to me. I guess my question is, what are they doing different than everyone else? Because I feel like this has been attempted by other people in the past, and it's been pretty disastrous results for most of them. Like, people can't compete with Google or even Bing, which is already barely competes with Google in the eyes of many people. Um, And yet Brave seems to. I don't hear a lot of complaints about Brave Search. People generally like it. Um, it seems to work well. It's not my daily driver, so I don't use it all the time, but I've used it before and I haven't noticed any problems with it. So it seems to be good, and it's not really clear to me what they're doing that's so different than everyone else who's tried this before.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The way I see it, because from a strict privacy perspective, if we're just talking privacy, there's nothing that this is necessarily offering that you can't receive from something like Start Page that just proxies Google results. Because then you can just have Google results privately, or um, Search NG, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And now Molvad's Leva search engine, which also proxies Google results. Like, if you just want privacy and you want good results, there's already options for that. And what Brave is even advertising in their headline is providing real alternative to big tech search. So I think that what they're really targeting here is just trying to offer a not search engine from a big company and not like feeding into that ecosystem. Um, yeah. And I think maybe like the financial incentive here, which is the other part of this announcement, which is really kind of big, and they only kept a short little paragraph here, is that they're announcing an API for the Brave search. So I think they're hoping that other search engines are going to start using Brave search as for like a meta search engine, kind of like how Start Page uses Google. Brave thinks that people are going to start using the Brave search for their own search engines. And in the meantime, they can advertise this as like a not big tech search engine, which is going to be attractive to the same people who are like, well, I'm not going to use Chromium because it's developed by one company, so I'm going to use Firefox instead, which is ironic because Brave is built on Chromium. So but whatever. I think that target audience might appreciate that. Frankly, I don't really care. I just like Brave Search because I get decent results with it and I don't get captured. So yeah, I don't know what the long term strategy is for this, but I think it's cool that they got this far. I know they rolled out the AI thing to their search engine, and I didn't care. I just don't. I can't express to you how much I do not care about like services just like half-assing this AI into their service because they think they have to because ChatGPT is like in the news. Like Snapchat.
Definitely a lot of that. Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up.
Like
Snapchat's is ridiculous.
it's so stupid. And did you see that like they have like they got so many one-star reviews because of that too.
Yeah,
And I think people are like kind of done with it. It's like, okay, guys, we get it. ChatGPT's here. It doesn't mean we want it in every service in our lives. We don't need Logitech to release some new software with AI in it to try to predict what you're going to type right now. I think that there might be some users, like maybe like new age, tech hipsters who are like, oh yeah, this is cool. Snapchat has an AI, let me play with it. But outside of like that new technology shiny selling point, I don't think that like functionally it really does anything, and I don't think it changes people's usability that much, at least right now. And I'm not saying that like AI is all bad or all good. It's just that like people are just trying to force it into every product right now just to say, oh, we have AI in our product because they think that people care. And I can tell you, as at least for me, and I know I'm probably on the weird end of this because I'm overall pretty anti-technology. I think like, wow, you are kind of like being ridiculous right now, and it makes you look very desperate to be rolling out AI like this into a service that doesn't need it. I don't know. It's kind of sad though because I don't know. I guess it depends. I'd like to see research on how many people actually give a crap about AI because it's kind of depressing to see how quickly people are to hop on a new trend just because it's a trend without critically thinking about the trend. Because again, I'm not inherently anti AI, but I'm anti everyone should be jumping on this just because it's the new buzzword.
Lockdown mode, we still think you should enable it when you can because it helps make those people less fingerprintable, but unfortunately, it is victim to the same flaws that Apple does not seem to care about.
So like this is a real browser that like can actually go against something like Firefox or Brave, something you can actually recommend to your family, not just a like kind of tinker project for the privacy community. Which by the way, I love those projects, but I'm not going to tell mom, download LibreWolf. Oh, you're going to have to manually update your browser every month or so, by the way. Or hey, yeah, just install ArchinFox on your Firefox installation. So this is really nice for that because I can just be like, okay, hey, Brave's kind of nice if you want something different for just like some quick searches. Here's Molvad browser. It's not as slow as Tor, and you can just download Tor. Like Brave, Molvad, Tor are now 3 like official, supported by like really legitimate companies slash organizations that are getting consistent updates and are going to last for years. Love it. Because we don't really know what's going to happen with AI. This could replace everyone's jobs, or this could be nothing. It could be like just a tool that people use to save time, and it's nothing but beneficial to humans. But the fact that like we don't even care about the consequences, we're not critically thinking about this, and we're just rolling it out because we can and because we have this free market, and everyone's like, well, we got to hop on it. That's what concerns me, and I think it really it speaks to our initial reaction to look for profits over everything else, at least in the Western countries.
That's what I thought.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We see a lot of just positivity on these, so it's really awesome to see that.